Okay, so this next presenter is a gentleman who's known to most people in the room. It was my pleasure to meet him for the first time in person a year ago when he was here doing some workshops, and I was personally very taken by him. William is president of the International Center for Reiki Training, the Center for Reiki Research, and the Reiki Membership Association. He is also editor-in-chief of the Reiki News magazine. He has studied with 5 Reiki teachers, including 2 from Japan, and made 3 research trips to Japan. He was instrumental in creating Usui Tibetan Reiki, Karuna Reiki, and also introduced Holy Fire Reiki. He is the author of Reiki, The Healing Touch, Reiki for a New Millennium, and The Spirit of Reiki, which he co-authored with Arjava Petter and Walter Lubeck. He's also the publisher of A Modern Reiki Method for Healing by Hiroshi Doi. He has practiced Reiki since 1981 and taught Reiki classes full-time around the world for the past 26 years. So I would ask you all please to put your hands together and welcome live from his home in Detroit, Michigan, William Lee Rand.
Hello.
Hello, William.
Hello. Okay, can you hear me?
You're looking well.
Hey, thank you. Wow, yeah, I feel great. I'm really happy to be able to make this presentation from my home in Michigan. I'm a little sad, though, that I'm not there in person because I would really enjoy meeting people and hugging them and talking with them about Reiki. But I think this will suffice for now. Now, you know, the name of my talk, the purpose of this talk is to go talk about the future of Reiki. And one thing I want to talk about, first of all, though, is that, you know, I'm going to be talking about the history and the practice of Reiki and so forth, but that really isn't the most important thing about Reiki. The most important thing is that Reiki heals people, Reiki helps people. Reiki is just a wonderful practice that helps us live our lives better. And it's, I think, very valuable for us as a group. And I want to say, too, that I honor all lineages, schools, and styles of Reiki. And by this, I mean that everyone has the right to practice Reiki any way that he or she feels they would like to practice it. The right style for a person to practice is actually the style that he or she is guided to practice. And so in that way, everybody is practicing the style that is right for them. And I really want to let you know that I appreciate that you are practicing Reiki. And I would like to say also that my intention for everyone that has Reiki is that your Reiki will be very strong and healthy and healing, and that you'll provide great benefit for yourself and for those that come to you for sessions, and that if you're teaching, that you'll have lots of students, and that your Reiki practice and your use of Reiki will go exceptionally well. Now, in this talk, I'm going to be offering what some might consider to be a different perspective about the history of Reiki. And it's going to be what I call an evidence-based history that's based on verifiable facts that have been corroborated by others, based on the work of various Reiki researchers in Japan and over here in the US. And the information is based on written records and interviews. And when you actually work with that sort of thing, you have to be willing to give up your previous ideas and beliefs if you're presented with new information that's different than what you had before and that's authentic. So because of that, at least in the beginning when this process started, we had to be willing to change because new facts and new ideas and information were coming up that were a lot different than what we thought Reiki how Reiki was being practiced. And some of these ideas are going to be very interesting to some people, and they'll find it very easy to accept them. And others are going to need a little more time to think them over and decide if they want to make use of the information or not. And others actually will feel that the information they have now and the beliefs that they currently have about Reiki are fine, and they're not going to change. And all of these ways of dealing with this information are fine with me. Everybody has the right to believe anything they'd like to believe and to practice Reiki any way that they think it should be practiced. Now, Reiki, of course, is a very healthy, very therapeutic practice. So Usui Sensei has said it's the secret art of inviting happiness and the miraculous medicine for all diseases. Reiki, as people have found, is a technique, a method that is available to us to actually help us solve any sort of problem we might encounter, so that even if we encounter problems that are beyond science and medicine to solve, we still have our Reiki, and we're able to use it to help ourselves and help others. With this comes a feeling of security and empowerment. And I've traveled all over the world teaching Reiki, and there's one thing that seems to be the same with all Reiki people, regardless of the country they live in, the ethnic group they belong to, the language they speak. And that's the fact that Reiki is there for us to help us heal anything that may enter our life, work with any issue or challenge or difficult situation, that we have Reiki available to us to help us live our lives in miraculous ways, and actually to help others as well. Now, I'd like to share a few examples of how Reiki has helped people. I had a couple come to me, husband and wife, and they apparently were very afraid. They were stressed out. They had a lot of difficulty even explaining to me why they were there. But the husband had cancer, and he was about to undergo chemotherapy, and they were very worried about what was going to happen. And so I explained to them that I myself had encountered a life-threatening illness, and through the use of Reiki and medical help, I was able to overcome the problems and end up being very healthy. And that seemed to help them understand the issues and what they were going to be going through. So I gave the husband a Reiki session, explaining that actually Reiki often will relieve the negative effects of chemotherapy, making it very easy for a person to stay with their regimen. And also I had a Reiki class coming up that weekend that I invited them to attend, and they did attend it. And they became coming for sessions before the husband got the chemotherapy. But then I explained to the wife that she has Reiki. She did take the class. She has Reiki. She should actually be giving her husband Reiki also. So she began doing that, and pretty soon they called and said, well, actually, the Reiki is working so well that they feel they don't really need to come and have sessions with me anymore. So my job was done. It worked. And then a couple of months later, they came back. They were very happy, relaxed. The husband was through with his chemo. He didn't lose his hair. He maintained his appetite. He had energy. And the chemo and the Reiki together caused the cancer to go into remission. And they were so happy about that, having met that challenge and overcoming it, that they were going to go on a vacation just to mark that as a milestone in their life, having worked together to help the husband heal his cancer. Now, another experience happened with a student, one of my students, and she gave a session to someone that lasted about 10 minutes, a very fast session, didn't last very long. And the client had problems with relationships. They were very unhappy. She was out of touch with her feelings, and she had various health issues. And during the session, the client explained afterwards that immediately she became aware that her father had sexually molested her when she was young, something she had forgotten. Suddenly she remembered that. At the same time as she was remembering that, a very powerful energy of forgiveness came through with the Reiki and flowed into her, and she was actually able to forgive her father for having done that, all in 10 minutes. After that, when she came back, her relationship started going better. She was more in touch with her feelings, and her health issues cleared up. So a miraculous thing took place for her. Another student in a class had trouble getting along with other people. She was always arguing and having fights with people, and very uncomfortable in her relationship with other people. So in that class, I did something I call a Reiki Experience, in which I talk a little bit at the beginning and then just stop talking and allow the Reiki energy to guide the person in their imagery and in their meditation. And so she explained afterwards that the first thing that happened is she was in a beautiful field of grass, and it was a wonderful day. The sun was shining, and she was with her 5-year-old daughter. And the daughter was just laughing and playing and rolling in the grass, having a great time. And the next thing that happened is that suddenly she was 5 years old, and her daughter were both laughing and playing and rolling in the grass and just feeling wonderful. And then the scene changed again. And every person that had ever harmed her, or that she'd ever had an argument with, or ever felt uncomfortable feelings about, was there. They were all 5 years old, and the whole group was laughing and playing and rolling in the grass and having fun together. And she said when she came back, actually, she felt that she could get along with people again. And she did report back a couple of months later, and in fact, she had overcome or worked through her issues. And she said the main thing was the experience that she had in class. So I'm sure that many of you have had experiences like that. And this is just another sample, something to think about. Now, in considering the future of Reiki, what I'm going to be doing is looking at the evidence-based history to get an accurate picture of exactly what happened in the development of Reiki. And from this, we'll be able to see a trend, any trends that might have taken place there, and then be able to project them into the future and get a fairly good idea of what will happen if Reiki continues to function and act the way it has in the past. We're also going to be looking at how Reiki is actually guiding itself. And it's based on the essence of Reiki. Reiki has a special essence that imbues itself in practitioners and clients and students. And we're going to be looking at that, and with the understanding that Reiki is actually guiding itself, and use that also to come to some ideas about the future of Reiki. So the trend and the essence will give us an idea. And since I'll be talking about evidence-based Reiki, I'd like to go over some of the sources, like where exactly this information came from. One of the people, Reiki researcher, his name is Usui Sensei. I first met him in Kyoto in '99, and I took his master class in 2002. I was also able to interview him twice for the Reiki News magazine, and I did help him publish his book, A Modern Reiki Method for Healing. Now, he became a Gakkai member, a member of the Usui Reiki Roho Gakkai in 1993. And the Gakkai is particularly important in understanding Reiki, first of all, because Usui Sensei was the first president, and the next four presidents after that were all students of Usui Sensei. They had received their Reiki training from him. And the last president was president up until 1975. So the Gakkai had a very solid foundation in the practice of Usui Reiki Ryoho. And so from that, the Gakkai's purpose, right from the beginning, was to continue to practice the same way that Usui Sensei practiced Reiki. And so, because Hiroshi Doi is a member, he has access to the archives. Also, he has access to two of the presidents and many of the Shimpiden members. He's an excellent source of understanding about the way Usui Sensei practiced Reiki. Also, our Javapetter Sensei, also a Reiki researcher. He also had contact with the Gakkai, with the president, and with many of the Shimpiden masters. And he has explained the information that he received there also. I sponsored our Java to come to the U.S. and teach his Japanese Reiki techniques classes. I also had the good fortune of writing a book with him, co-authoring a book with him and Walter Lubeck. And then we actually went to India and taught Reiki classes there together. Then there's Chiyoko Yamaguchi Sensei and Tado Yamaguchi Sensei. Chiyoko Yamaguchi was actually a student of Hayashi Sensei, and she helped him put his classes together. And eventually, she became a Shimpiden through her uncle with the permission of Hayashi Sensei. And then Tado, also her son, has written an important book on Light on the Origin of Reiki. Chiyoko unfortunately passed on in 2003. When I first took my Reiki training, I took it from Bethel Fay. Bethel was one of Takata's masters. I was able to ask her a lot of important questions about Reiki, and it was a very good source of information. I took level 1 and 2 from Bethel. I've also interviewed and taken part in interviews with other masters taught by Takata Sensei, and 2 of the biographies written by her, of course. I read them both, and one of the biographies were completed during Takata Sensei's life by one of her friends. And so that's the basis of the information I'm going to be talking about tonight. The first thing I'd like to talk about is the fact that Reiki actually existed before Usui Sensei began to practice his style of Reiki. Now, a lot of people feel that Reiki is what Usui Sensei practiced. And if it's not like his style, then it's not Reiki. But actually, we have to consider the fact that there were 4 other styles of Reiki, therapeutic Reiki, Reiki for healing, that were being practiced in Japan before Usui Sensei developed his style. So, first graphic. So we're going to put up a graphic now, some quite interesting. This research about the 4 styles prior to Usui Sensei came from Hiroshi Doi Sensei and Toshitaka Mochizuki Sensei as well. Now we have a graphic up here on the screen. This is of Mataji Kawakami, and he actually created something called Reiki Ryoho in 1914. Now that was 8 years prior to Usui Sensei developing his style of Reiki, Usui Reiki Ryoho. Mataji was also the author of a Reiki book called Reiki Healing and Its Effects that he published in 1919. 3 years prior to Usui Sensei having his experience on Mount Kurama. So we've got the evidence about that. Reiki before Usui. There are also 3 other Reiki masters, Reiki teachers, who developed and practiced a style of Reiki prior to Usui Sensei. So from this evidence, it appears that, you can take the graphic off, that actually Usui was not the first one to practice Reiki. And it's interesting that the first style that we know of here, Reiki Ryoho, that Usui called his Reiki Usui Reiki Ryoho. So from that, it's possible that Usui knew about these other styles and was indicating that his style was his, making it different from the other styles. So quite interesting about that. Now, Usui Sensei had his experience on Mount Kurama in March of 1922. He was not actually seeking a way of healing. He didn't want to learn about healing, or that wasn't his purpose to go to Mount Kurama. He wanted to go to Mount Kurama because his Zen master told him that if he wanted to be enlightened, he needed to go there and meditate with the intention that he would meditate until he died. Or became enlightened. And so on the mountain, he had the spiritual experience. A great beam of Reiki came down through the top of his head, and he received what is called Anshinditsume, which is a type of enlightenment. And it's a type of enlightenment in which a stream of peaceful energy comes welling up from within, independent of anything going on around the person. And that's what Usui Sensei received, the feeling of peace. And also this Ansen Ditsume was a type of awareness of enlightenment in which one was shown their purpose in life. And then was given the ability, the energy to carry it out. So as Usui Sensei went down the mountain, the story goes, we're all familiar with it, I'm sure, he stubbed his toe, he put his hands on his toe, and suddenly he realized he had healing energy. And he called it Reiki. Eventually Usui Reiki Ryoho. And so all he got, though, on the mountain was the energy. He did not get the symbols or the different techniques or the way to practice it. And over a period of time, he developed that system. Especially the development took place after the Great Kanto earthquake of 1923. There was a tsunami. They say 100,000 people actually died. And so there's a tremendous calamity. There were many people who were sick and grieving. So Usui Sensei went about helping people. They say that he actually would heal 6 people at the same time, 1 on each hand, 1 on each foot. He would also use his eyes, which is called Goshi-ho, to heal with his eyes and with his breath. He healed 6 people at one time. But in doing this, he realized that there were so many people in need of healing that what he really needed to do was to develop his style of teaching so that it would become easier for people to learn Reiki, and he could have more people helping him to heal the sick. And so in this process, he added the symbols, and that was to make it easier for people to channel energy. The symbols, he just had 3 symbols. There was no master symbol or 4th symbol that we have in Western Reiki. He only had 3. And he also developed a more formal method of doing the Reiju, or in Japanese it would be Reiju, or Attunement Method, so that others could learn how to do this. Apparently what Usui Sensei did was the students would just be in his presence, and by being his students and by getting training from him, they received the energy. And then after the Great Kanto earthquake, it said that's when he actually developed the attunement method, the formal attunement method. He had just 1 attunement that he did the same over and over and over. There was not a different attunement for each level, the same attunement. And it's interesting that according to Usui Sensei, the most important thing that a student of Reiki could get was actually many, many attunements. The purpose of the attunements, getting the same one over and over and over, was to refine one's ability to channel Reiki. And the idea was that Reiki comes from an infinite source. There's no limit to the quality of energy or the quantity that's available. And the only limitation is our ability to channel, what we can channel. And opening the pathway through getting multiple reijus or attunements was one of the ways that Usui Sensei recommended. Doi Sensei is saying that that's the most important thing for a student to do, is get many attunements over and over and over, opening the channel, clearing it so that we can channel ever higher frequencies of Reiki was the most important thing. And also we can look at this this motive as the spiritual aspect of Reiki, because as we actually do open up our channel and purify it, we begin to channel ever higher frequencies of Reiki that are more beneficial and more effective, and actually we do get into the spiritual qualities. And so this idea of getting multiple reijus or attunements is very much an important part of the spiritual practice of Reiki, seeking to channel ever higher frequencies. So another thing to think about is that Reiki comes from God. It was already mentioned by other people in the convention, or the highest power, or the supreme being, the creator, whatever you want to call it. So developing our ability to connect more strongly to God, the highest power, the supreme being, the creator, is a very spiritual practice and very important to our work as Reiki healers. Now, when we consider that Reiki comes from God or the Supreme Being, most we consider God, the Supreme Being, to be infinite, unlimited. And because of that, then the potential for Reiki also must be unlimited. When we first get our attunements, we do have Reiki, certainly, but that doesn't mean that we've developed our ability to channel the highest frequencies. And so Usui Sensei had that as the most important part of Reiki. He also developed what we call in the West, the Japanese Reiki techniques. And one of them, Byosen scanning, was very important. And he said that that was the second most important technique for a student to study, Byosen scanning. There was also Goshi-ho, which is Reiki with the eyes, Gasho, the meditation, Kenyoku, and Koki-ho, and so forth. There's quite a list of the techniques that Usui Sensei practiced. And the philosophy around it was basically that we can always open our channel further, purify our ability to receive higher frequencies of Reiki, and receive Reiki that is even stronger. Now, one thing that is interesting about Usui Sensei, he had a rating system for the quality of the Reiki of his students. There were 6 levels, and the lowest level was 6, and the highest level was 1. Well, he deliberately placed himself at the 2nd level. He didn't say he was at the top level. And so, most likely, that was because he wanted people to be aware and motivated to go higher, that there was more even than what he did available to us. So that's a basic synopsis of Usui Sensei and his practice. Then one of his last student actually, Hayashi Sensei, learned Reiki, of course, from Usui Sensei. And Hayashi Sensei had been a medical doctor, had medical training. And because of this, Usui Sensei recognized him as having a special ability with his practice of medicine, especially the training that he had. And he asked him to actually develop Reiki further, to take it further. And so after Usui Sensei passed on, he did begin to do that. He created his own institute called Hayashi Reiki Kyukai, the Hayashi Institute or School. And he began to further develop Reiki. And at that time also, he departed the Gakkai. The Gakkai's purpose was to actually maintain practice the same way Usui Sensei practiced. And so with Hayashi Sensei developing it, it didn't go well with what the purpose of the Gakkai was. So he started his own center and dropped out of the Gakkai at that time. So according to Horishidoi Sensei, he developed the Attunement Method, making it more effective, efficient. He also changed the way that treatments were given. Usui Sensei had people sit in a chair, and one person gave the treatment to the client. But Hayashi Sensei had people lay on a treatment table similar to a treatment table that a doctor would use. They would use in a hospital. And he had many people, 2 or more people, giving that person Reiki. He changed that. Also, when he traveled, because he wouldn't be in an area very long, he began teaching level 1 and 2 together while he was traveling. It was 5 days, and there was a leiju or attunement each day. Each day consisted of 2 or 3 hours of practice. But even though he taught in that way, he emphasized that it was important to continue getting additional attunements, leijus, after that, the purpose of which is to continue to refine and develop your Reiki channel. Now, one of Hayashi Sensei's students was Takata Sensei. Takata Sensei worked in Hayashi's clinic, and she received her Shoden and Okuden in 1936 and 37 over a period of a couple of years. And she may also have received some of the Shimpiden while she was there, because in her notes, her diary, it seems to indicate that. And then she moved back to Hawaii, and Hayashi Sensei followed her, and they went around Hawaii teaching classes, giving talks, and doing Reiki sessions with people. And in 1938, Hayashi Takata Sensei became a Reiki master. And Hayashi Takata Sensei had a unique way of practicing and teaching. Usui developed his style over a period of time. Hayashi Sensei was asked to develop. He did that further. But Takata did something rather interesting. And we know this from the book that John Gray wrote. Now, in 1977, something interesting happened with Takata Sensei. She said she was going to retire. So at the end of the year, she sent out a note, a handwritten letter signed by her, saying that she was going to retire. And she was naming 3 people that would take over her practice. And those 3 people were Virginia Samdaw, Ethel Lombardi, and John Harvey Gray. So we know from this that Takahata had tremendous respect for John Harvey Gray, that he certainly knew how she taught and would be able to continue teaching in the same way. Now, John Harvey Gray said that Takata told him that she had changed the system. She didn't teach the same way Hayashi taught, but she taught a different system, a system that she created. She took the hand placements that Hayashi Sensei had created, and she reduced them to just 8 hand placements. And they were on the abdomen, on the shoulders, and the head. And occasionally there were hand placements on the back if the client needed it. And so she told John Gray that the system Hayashi Sensei taught was too complicated for the Western mind, so she was going to simplify it. And she did that with the hand placements, but also she did not teach any of what we call the Japanese Reiki techniques, the Byosen scanning, which was said to be the most important, the second most important technique, and Gashiho, Kenyoku, Goshiho, and so forth, Gasho, and Kokiho. And what she did seem to do, though, is to actually teach something similar to Reijiho. When I took Reiki from Bethel Fay, Bethel said, of course she was teaching the same way Takata taught her, that first you place your hands where the symptoms are located, and if that doesn't work, then you use your intuition, allow your intuition to tell you where to place your hands. And so that is very similar to Reijiho, although Reijiho is a formal method of requesting guidance through the intuition, and then having gotten it, you place your hands where you're guided. So at least she had that, but she did eliminated most of the Japanese Reiki techniques. She also had a different attunement for each level, whereas Usui and Hayashi had the same attunement that was given over and over and over and over. She had a different attunement for each level, and also the attunements empower the symbols. With Usui and Hayashi, they did not empower the symbols. And Hayashi Takata Sensei said that you needed just one set of attunements, that's all that's necessary. So she had 4 attunements for level 1, 1 or 2 attunements for level 2. John Harvey Gray got 2. Other people got just 1 for level 2, and 1 attunement for master. She also did something quite unusual. She had and she taught a master symbol. Now we know from the research done by Doi Sensei, Javapeder Sensei, that the Gakkai and Usui did not have a master symbol. Now, Doi Sensei did say something quite interesting. He said there was one person that Usui Sensei taught, that he had met, that was not a Gakkai member, and Usui Sensei showed him what we use as the master symbol here in the West. He said it was not a Reiki symbol, but it was a symbol to give direction to one's spiritual path as a Shimpiden. And but that was the only person Doi Sensei knew of that had that happen. The Gakkai members all say that they did not receive a master symbol, and that they have no knowledge whatsoever of Usui ever having used a master symbol. So why don't we bring up the graphic with the second graphic. We're going to bring up a graphic now, diagram. And this is just showing the differences between Usui, Hayashi, and Takata. Usui and Hayashi taught fairly similarly, and you can see the differences in their systems. Same attunement for each level. Takata Sensei, a different attunement for each level. Usui Sensei, Hayashi Sensei, attunements do not empower the symbols. Takata Sensei, attunements do empower the symbols. Attunements were done repeatedly as many times as possible. With Usui and Hayashi Sensei, Takata Sensei, attunements were only done once, one set. And then Usui Sensei, Hayashi Sensei did not have a master symbol, and Takata Sensei did. So there were some interesting differences there. Now, because of these differences, I think it's very appropriate for us to think of Takata Sensei as an innovator. Now, in terms of, some people were saying that Hayashi Sensei may have had the master symbol. Well, we know Chiyoko Yamaguchi Sensei, she was a Shimpiden. initiated by her brother. And if she was a Shimpiden and she didn't have a master symbol, she was also trained at the time of, or a little after the time that Takata Sensei was trained in 1938. So there's evidence there that Hayashi Sensei did not have a master symbol. So the question is, where did Takata Sensei get the master symbol? Why did she use it? Now we know that the master symbol is actually an important spiritual symbol in Japan, in Japanese Buddhism. When we went to Mount Kurama, we could see right on the plaques that were there, the actual master symbol was there as a spiritual concept. We had the good fortune of being at the main temple when one of the priests came out to do chanting, and we very distinctly heard him chant the words of the master symbol. In Japan also, there is a system of temples, and it's the temple to, then the name of the master symbol, to the master symbol. Of course, they're using the Japanese name. So the master symbol is used throughout Japan as a spiritual symbol. And so Takata had been to Japan. Perhaps she saw it there, or it's possible that her Japanese friends may have actually shown her the symbol. But she did use it. She had an attunement for the master level. Usui Sensei did not have an attunement for that level. There were no attunements for each level. So these are some important differences. Okay. So we see Takata Sensei having altered the system considerably. Now her system, of course, is a very good system. It was the first system I learned, and it was a remarkable system. It was simple. It was easy to learn. But I think the most important thing that we need to honor Hayashi Takata Sensei for is the fact that without her, Reiki would have been lost. Now, the reason I say that is because after the war, World War II, the Japanese were required to unconditionally surrender to the USA. The USA was completely in charge of Japan. And they decided that if someone was going to do a healing practice, they needed to be licensed. And so some of the Japanese healing practitioners, such as the acupuncturists, decided to go ahead and get licensed. The Gakkai decided not to. They decided that what they would do is go underground, become a secret society. They would practice Reiki only among themselves. They would talk about Reiki only among themselves. And they did that. And so, in effect, it disappeared. The Gakkai disappeared. And even after the war was over, years afterwards, the Gakkai are still very secretive. And it's still very difficult in Japan to make contact with them. It's very difficult to become a member. So we're very fortunate that Hiroshi Doi Sensei is a member and is able to let us know about the Gakkai and what they do. But Hayashi Takata, because she moved to the US, she was not required to get licensed for being a Reiki practitioner like the Japanese were, and she began teaching. She was an excellent teacher, and she taught many, many people, made 22 masters, and because of her, Reiki had been preserved. Afterwards, then, Reiki people went back to Japan and began teaching there, and because of that, Reiki became more well-known. Eventually, the Gakkai was discovered, and we started learning more about the Gakkai. So we've got quite an interesting history of Reiki. When we look back on the practice of Reiki, we can see that one of the things that is consistent throughout its practice is that it developed over time. Usui Sensei developed the practice during his lifetime. And then he asked Hayashi Sensei to develop it further, which he did. Takata Sensei developed it even more, changing the system. And so we see the system changing over time as a trend that has taken place. We also see that Usui Sensei developed Reiki within an environment where there already were Reiki practitioners practicing. So he wasn't the first one to practice Reiki in Japan. There were at least 4 other schools of Reiki in Japan at the time. And so we see now also, and very similar. So we see that trend taking place even now. In addition to the trend of Reiki, helping us to understand what the future will be like, we also need to look at the essence of Reiki. Now, the essence of Reiki is something we become aware of when we come in contact with the Reiki energy. When we do self-sessions on ourselves, when we treat others, when we teach classes, the Reiki is present. And out of this, we begin to meditate. We're able to actually feel and sense what was contained in the Reiki energy, the essence of the Reiki energy. And many people feel joy and peace and love and higher spiritual qualities are located within the essence of Reiki. We also notice, too, Reiki respects free will. Now, that's important. Free will is very important. I once had a class. A woman came to take the class. She received the attunement. Afterwards, she didn't have Reiki. Something happened. And I asked her, well, why did you take the class? She said, well, my husband told me I had to take it. And I asked her, did you want to take the class? She said, no. She received the attunement, but she didn't want the attunement. She didn't want to take Reiki. Reiki respected her free will, did not give her the attunement. There have been other experiences as well, showing the nature of Reiki respecting free will. I've made it a point to be aware of the most talented clairvoyant people that I could find. I met one woman, her name was Michelle Griffith, and she could very easily, clearly see different kinds of energy. She could see different kinds of Reiki, Reiki vibrating at different frequencies. She could see Reiki that was being influenced by the symbols. She could see spirits around people, see their aura, see their chakras, and so forth. So one day I decided to do an experiment. I didn't tell her what I was doing, but I called her and asked her if she could look at my energy field. And she told me some things about my energy. Then, without telling her, I began doing Reiki on myself. And I said, well, see any difference? Do you see anything happening now? She said, oh, well, looks like you're doing Reiki on yourself. I could see the Reiki energy starting to flow in your aura. Wow, okay. So then I used the first symbol, the power symbol, not telling her about that. I said, what do you see now? And she said, well, the energy got stronger. You did something to make it stronger. Then I asked her, I actually did the emotional mental symbol. And I said, what do you see now? And she said, well, this is very different. She said that the energy is flowing into your solar plexus and your heart, and it flows out into your aura. It's healing your mind and emotions. So she got that right too. Then I thought, well, I'm going to do some distant Reiki. We'll see what happens. So used the distance symbol. I began sending Reiki to someone at a distance. And I asked her what happened then. And she said, well, actually, your aura became blue, meaning a higher vibration. And there is a stream of Reiki flowing from each of your hands. And it's going out to a place about 40 miles away where the streams are crossing. There's a person there, and you're giving that person Reiki. Wow, okay, she passed all my tests. Well, then I thought, let's see what happens when I give it to different people. So I gave it to another person. I said, what do you see going on here? He said, well, that person doesn't want the Reiki. It goes up to the edge of the person's aura, but the person doesn't want the Reiki. It doesn't affect that person. I sent it to another person. She said, well, that person wants the Reiki. It's just zooming right in and treating them. We tried a number of different people. Some wanted it, some didn't. The one that didn't want it, the Reiki wouldn't treat them. So from that, we can see, at least that one experience, Reiki respects free will. And free will is actually the foundation of higher consciousness. The foundation of higher consciousness. Without free will, we're holding people back. We're not allowing them to be free. And we're not allowing them to grow and to interact with life in a way that would be beneficial for them. So we see the essence of Reiki flowing through people and As people allow themselves to be healed, again, Reiki respects free will. Reiki will not heal you or others unless you allow it to heal you. But when people are very open to being healed, they're willing to give up or release the ego and release their ego attachments, then we find that Reiki begins developing special qualities in each person. Reiki refines and upgrades a person's personality. They begin to develop patience and love of themselves and others, become non-competitive, become more accepting of other people, become non-judgmental. They develop forgiveness, gratitude, and also, especially, Reiki begins to develop the connection we have with the source of Reiki, increasing our connection to God, the Supreme Being, the highest power, and so forth. So this creates an ever-developing feeling of safety within people. As their Reiki develops, people become feeling more and more safe, knowing that Reiki is looking out for us, knowing that Reiki is clearing a path into the future for us, making our future safe and healthy, and helping us develop healthy personality traits, helping our lives be healthy and happy, productive, abundant, and so forth. So, I've talked about a few important things, the trend that Reiki has gone through, a trend of development, the fact that there were multiple schools of Reiki at the time that Usui Sensei developed his school. We find that happening now. And the concept also exists that since Reiki comes from the Supreme Being, who is unlimited, God, unlimited, then we need to consider the possibility that Reiki also has an unlimited potential. And that as we develop our channel, purify our channel, we can begin tapping into and channeling ever higher frequencies of Reiki that will give us greater benefit, and we will be able to provide greater benefit for others. When we look at the Western style Reiki, the Takata style, we also see people get level 1, they have Reiki. Level 2, their Reiki seems to get stronger. Level 3, stronger again, and master, even stronger. And so we can see the quality of Reiki improving as the channel is opened further with each level. And so this concept about Reiki having unlimited potential is very similar to a library and a library card. So libraries have thousands and thousands of volumes, books. A really good library may have 50,000 books. And we get our library card. We now have access to the library. But having the library doesn't mean we have all the knowledge in the library. All we have is the ability to access the library and read the books. Over time, of course, if we devote ourselves, we can become more and more aware, knowledgeable, and wise by reading the books in the library. The same concept applies to Reiki. It has an unlimited potential. If we approach it in the right way, allowing Reiki to guide us, Reiki will guide us, if we ask it to do so, in ways that help us develop its potential and its expression through us. So looking at the evidence and understanding Reiki from the aspect of its essence and all the different styles that are being practiced, we can look into the future and we get the idea that Reiki will continue to develop and evolve and grow. That the quality of our Reiki energy will continue to evolve, become stronger and more powerful, more refined. And as these things begin to happen, it will have a profound effect on us as practitioners, but also on the people around us. And from our experience of the essence of Reiki, we know that it cultivates and it develops superior human qualities of joy, peace, love, gratitude, forgiveness, and so forth. And with these ideas in mind, we can say that the future trend of Reiki will assist us in developing those qualities ourselves as we refine the expression, so that as the quality of Reiki energy increases, the essence of Reiki will more completely affect how we express ourselves. We become more loving and kind and accepting, non-judgmental, forgiving, grateful. As this happens, the people who are members of various lineages and schools and styles of Reiki will become more open to each other, more friendly, more kind, trusting, accepting of each other. We'll find it much easier to work together in harmony to achieve the goals that Reiki has chosen for us. And this will act to make our practice of Reiki even stronger. And the energy will be more joyful and healthy and inviting, and it will be more attractive to more and more people. People with varied backgrounds. And this will enable us to take Reiki and develop it and use it for larger projects, including helping us weave Reiki into the institutions of society. Reiki will help us become Reiki will become more a part of the medical establishment, the education system, the work environment, the military, the police, the politics, the government. And this will act to more quickly bring well-being, joy, and happiness to all the people of the world. We're the forerunners of this important shift in consciousness. Therefore, I encourage all of you, all Reiki practitioners and teachers, regardless of your lineage, school, or style, to work together in harmony to bring peace to our planet, a peace that we so dearly need. Okay, thank you.